Hello, Lamar University and TEA. It is a beautiful spring break day here in Mineola, Texas, with hopes of fishing later on this afternoon. Um, I am currently serving as the assistant principal here at Mineola Middle School in Mineola, Texas. We service 387 students, that is sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade. Uh, our students composed 58% white, 28% Hispanic, 8% African American, and 1% American Indian, and 1% Asian. Of those students, 55.3% are economically disadvantaged. 6.2% of those are English language learners, and 7.2% of those students receive some form of special education services. Our faculty consists of 38 team members that service the middle school, and some of them also have duties or responsibilities to the high school as well, being in a small school. 85% of our teachers are white, 6% are Hispanic, and 3% are American Indian. As far as this field experience that I've chosen in talking with my principal, being the assistant principal here, I've been given the responsibility of working on an incentive program and kind of designing a way of keeping track of points. Now, this incentive is based on three things, three components: attendance, grades, of course, their academic responsibilities and holding them accountable for those grades, and then discipline as well. One portion of this meeting is going to be looking at how that has worked so far, first semester, what's happened the second semester, and then any adjustments and changes, talking about some of the changes that I already have made, and then some things that we may need to possibly change looking at next year. A couple other things that are going to be on the agenda are in reference to lunch detentions and ZAPs. Uh, we have created a Google form and implemented it this year to where it kind of takes away some of the paperwork and everything, where immediately from the desktop, teachers can assign those lunch detentions and give a brief explanation. And then same thing on the ZAPs. It's still hard copy where the students are responsible for bringing down that ZAP paper along with that work, and make a phone call to a parent. But then the person working ZAP after school that day, they put it into the system. And again, this falls back into accountability and us being able to document and deduct points in that incentive program, both for these. So it's been very influential and valuable to me, allowing me to document and look at things like the kids, the reasons behind those lunch detentions and ZAPs, and then even looking as far as the teachers and how they're being assigned appropriately, or at times not used correctly. So we're going to try to work on cleaning up that system. There's still some faults there, so in this meeting I'm hoping to address some of those, see if we can fine tune that system, because it's been something that has been valuable to our campus, and has helped to make things run a lot smoother. So basically looking at it and maybe tweaking some things and getting some good ideas from some of my discipline committee members that I'll be meeting with. One of the last things that we're going to discuss on the agenda is a discipline issue that we're having in the restrooms. This has just started happening in the last couple of weeks, so I think we probably collectively can come up with a solution to figure out how we can deter some of the misbehavior in the restrooms. So basically, this group, they'll be coming in tomorrow. Like I said, it is spring break, so it's pretty awesome to have some people that you can rely on that are more than willing to come help you out, given that this is an assignment for Lamar, but at the same time, it's a meeting that has value. It's something that each one of these individuals have some ownership in, and is important to them. So I'm looking forward to the collaboration. And you'll see, I promise you in the meeting, you'll see some of these characters and you'll understand why I've selected them and that they are definitely people that I seek out and ask for advice, and they have been very supportive of me. At the conclusion of this meeting, I'll be sending out a survey through Google and sharing that with them. My hopes from that survey is to get some honest, open feedback, which I'm sure I will. They'll be looking at things such as time management, effective communication and listening, the relevance of the topics, and if we actually were able to resolve some issues. So, like I said, I expect to get some good open feedback from them. I'm also planning on sending this video to my superintendent as well as my campus principal so that they can also give me some feedback and suggestions on how or areas that I can improve on. Anyway, I appreciate you guys being here today. I understand it's spring break and you guys are enjoying this time off, but this is a meeting we really need. With you guys being on the discipline committee that we started up this year, I wanted to invite y'all into this so we can kind of go over some things. Next week's going to be very busy. This right here is just the agenda that I passed out. One, I do want to set some norms. If you guys have anything that y'all want to add as far as norms, obviously we want to be very respectful and professional. Any cell phone devices, if you haven't silenced them or turned them off, we want to make sure that we also don't allow that to interrupt our meeting today. If you need to use the restroom or if you need to get a drink of water, feel free. This shouldn't take long. I'm needing about 35 good minutes of video and conversation with you guys and input. Anybody else have a norm that they would like to add in there that might help this meeting go further? David, do you have anything? No. Okay, appreciate it.
Honesty without fear.
Yes. This is a psychologically safe environment right now, okay? As long as we're staying respectful and positive. I know sometimes that when you question things, they can be seen as negative, but we want to make sure that we're trying to keep it the most positive way. Because we do have some good stuff here, but there's definitely things that can be improved.
So an improvement suggestion is not necessarily negative?
It is not, because there's going to be even some things that I may indicate in the meeting where it could be seen toward one teacher or something as a negative, and it's not. It's just how can we improve things, whether it be classroom management or whatever. But we'll get to that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. The topics that I have for discussion, obviously the incentive program, lunch detention, we're going to talk about that, ZAPs, and then current discipline issues, in which we have one that was made the headline last week. And I know me and Ms. Kendall had talked about it a little bit on Friday. She came up with a really good idea, so I want to share that with y'all too at the end. And then at the very end, any questions or concerns that you guys may have. As far as the incentive program, does anybody have anything before we start? Questions? Okay. As far as the incentive program, I have it up here, and I know you guys have probably seen this. You're probably not as familiar with it as some of the kids now, hopefully. They've become a little bit more familiar now that we're in the 5th, 6 weeks. When we came into, and I think Ms. Kendall, you were in on this, I think when we started discussing this, basically the idea is we want to try to get the kids, one, to be here. I think the first thing that we looked at was attendance, trying to target attendance, and then we wanted to tie in some other things as far as grades and then discipline. So looking at the grades, that's at the top. If a student is an A honor roll student, and here, I guess I didn't realize that until this year, we have an A and one B is honor roll also. So given every 6 weeks, they have an opportunity to get 10 points for those grades. So if they're all A's and they're all A's and one B, then they get all 10 of those points, totaling 30 at the end of that semester, and that's what they're hoping for, to get all those points for their grades. If they have A's and B's, which is more than one B, or all B's even, They could be all A's and B's, and they receive 7 points, so there's a 3-point deduction there. So this area is where kids, they're able to gain points throughout the semester. All their other points are given, which we'll talk about, and they're there in which they can lose. But on the grades, the incentive there is with their production, with what they're able to produce for the 6 weeks, they can actually gain points. For C's, and it could be even 1 C, that brings them to 4 points. So it's a deduction of 6 points there. And then obviously if they fail, they get 0 points.
If they fail any grade.
Any class. All it takes is,
All A's and 1 F.
and it takes 1 F, and all of a sudden they don't get any points for that 6 weeks. The way it's set, I mean, because they're able to get 60 points in order to still go, we have it, and that's one thing I want to discuss when we look at grades. Potentially a student who fails every 6 weeks, if they are here every day and don't lose any points because of absences, or they don't lose any points because of disciplines, they're sitting there with 70 points at the end of the semester, and they're able to go on the incentive trip. So we need to look at that. Is that an issue? Or is it hitting the ideal of that's what we wanted to target was attendance? Because obviously that's where
It doesn't affect some of the students that I guess have a harder time.
no. And I think there's something in there which it's not on this, looking at grades, but I've talked with Ms. McKinney and Coach White, and we've discussed little manipulation of those points for those kids. Where
But if they're here and they're not getting in trouble, they can still go.
right,
So I don't know
even
why
if they
you do
fail,
that.
right.
Well, and especially because it's probably making seeds, unless they're just not trying,
Yes,
this
that's
semester
true.
they're not going to.
Yes, they're probably at least here.
So, they
And the
should.
one thing I've noticed when doing these incentives through 4-6 weeks is we have a large number of kids that make C's. A lot of our kids they make C's. And so I don't know if there's a way to manipulate. I was even thinking about, and this is a little off topic, where, when we do the all honor rows, we do all A's, 1B. Can we not get to the point where we can even put something up there for kids who make A's and B's so they can see their name on the wall? And when I first started doing this was a discussion. Well, that's not an honor roll.
We're not saying
Well,
it's an honor roll.
It's not an honor roll, but
better
still
than
it's
C's.
recognition.
Honorable mention.
It's an honorable mention or something, yes.
When I was
Where-
in grade school, there was A honor roll or AB honor roll.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you could have one, and you could have one A and then the rest B's.
Yeah.
As long as you had an A and a B, you were on AB
They
honor.
put it in the paper every 6 weeks. Here's the
Right.
kid with the A honor roll. Here's the kid with AB honor roll.
But what I'm told is that has never happened here in Mineola. That is not how they've ever done it.
That's not true. At the high school, it's A's and B's now.
It's A's and B's now.
Pretty sure.
So that may be something where at least the kids can, because I got some kids that are like, can you make all A's? Can you make all A's and 1B? No. Can you make all A's and all B's? Yes. But are you doing that? No. So maybe just a little bit of that recognition, name on the wall with all the others can kind of inspire them a little bit. Baby steps.
Doesn't have to be called honor roll. It's just where they are.
Just A's and B's.
Honorable mention.
Honorable mention. I do like that. Okay. I know that was a little off topic, but going into discipline, and this is something that has changed throughout the semester. Initially, it was like 10 points per assignment at ISS. And, we would have a kid, they would get 1-day assignment, or whether it's a 3-day assignment or a 5-day assignment, and it was 10 points. So we went to 5 points for each day you're assigned. So it's still those kids that are going to go to ISS, if it's a 3-day assignment, that's a big one. But at the same time, if it's one for that kid who, and it may be because they're not able to go to ZAPS and they're stacked up, and I stick them in the ISS to kind of get all their work done and everything, it's only 5 points opposed to the 10.
And they don't get the zap. and
Right.
that.
They don't know.
Right,
They don't
if they
double
get
up.
that zap.
But if it's a new assignment, like one thing for ISS and another thing for SAP.
Then it
Right.
was 2.
And I've worked with even Miss Cash where we try to make sure the points add up. And I think we may have even done it before where this kid had, maybe 2 or 3 zaps, and we put them in ice. So we counted it think it was 2 zaps or something, and we counted it as 5 or 6 points. We put it in as 6 points, and I think I may have actually even went in and assigned it as 2 zaps and not even an assignment in ISS, so that the points added up.
Because the kid can't help it if the parents won't.
Right.
Yeah, that's not their fault.
Lunch detentions, it started out as 1 point, I think, at the very beginning of the year, and then this second semester, it's jumped to 2 points to try to deter, because that's our biggest one is lunch detention. When we go to the lunch detention forum, you'll see it's a lot of kids going into lunch detention, where even Coach Dennis is having to do lunch in her room and take half of them at times. DAP placement is automatic, 40 points. So that pretty much puts them out of the running, unless, again, if they make all A's, perfect attendance,
And no other
and no discipline issues, which,
which is great. I mean, that's what we want. I mean,
They
You're
come-
still giving them that
kids
opportunity.
Yeah.
there's a chance.
Yes.
And then at the end was the attendance, and it's 10 points per absence.
You start with 30.
So you start with 30 points,
This
and
one we start with 40. So it's,
so you have 70. You start out with 70 points at the beginning of the
And
semester,
then you can earn
and then you
points.
have 30 points to earn if you're able to make all A's. All A's and
The absences is the most confusing for the kids
Mhm.
about whether it's excused or not. I never know how to answer that for
And
them.
And did you bring a note from, and I don't know,
Yeah,
I
it's
have an
valid
issue with the
doctor's
doctor's issue,
There's some
because sometimes my kid stays home and he doesn't go to the doctor because he's, running fever, but I'm not necessarily taking him to the doctor.
and you know.
So I think it should be valid
Right.
teacher note, valid parent note or something.
Okay, now, with that being said, I think for a while we've been doing
A valid excuse.
attendance even wrong here for the longest time. Because with dealing with this, we got with high school, we started talking around, and for them to get an excused absence where it doesn't account toward an absence for them or doesn't hit the incentive, because there are some that they still count as an absence. If you bring a doctor's note back and you miss the entire day, you are not you're not penalized on the incentive, but you still have an absence because you missed the entire day.
It's just an excuse.
Right, it's an excused absence. So it still goes toward that absence where you'll see it, but it doesn't count toward their incentive. If you missed a portion of the day and you've gone to a doctor, this hits our kids where they have a doctor's appointment or they have more of an
But they
doctor's
come
appointment
back.
and they come back. Or they're here most of the day and then they leave and then they come back the next day with that doctor's appointment. Then what goes in is a D goes in there, and that is excused, meaning it doesn't count as an absence against them and it doesn't count toward the incentive. So the push in this last few 6 weeks is getting the understanding to the kids and teachers and everyone and the parents where, okay, if you're going to take your kid to the doctor, this is how you need to do it. Because some kids, they'll miss the entire day.
Yes.
And then they'll go
For
to the
a while,
doctor and they'll come back with the doctor's note, but it counts against them as far as a day. It still doesn't hit them with the incentive. I looked this last week because the attendance is the one where, I mean, it is a beast. And I remember Miss Gould at the very beginning of the year was like, you've got to stay on top of this. And I was like, well, had football going on, had other things. I'm going, man, and it is a beating. If I could give that to anyone right now and say, hey, this is yours, that's what I would pick as attendance, because it's constant communication with parents and educating them what they can and what they can't do, what they're accounting for, and the kids are even learning a little bit. This last couple of weeks, because I've been looking at attendance weekly, we had four kids absent last week, 4 kids. 3 of them were out for multiple days, so obviously they were sick. 1 student didn't have doctor's notes, so they had I think they missed the whole week. They have 5 absences now with no doctor's notes. The other 2, they have 2 or 3 absences apiece, but there's an M there, meaning that they were gone. They went to the doctor. They brought a doctor's back note excusing them for those days. So it's just educating them on what works toward the incentive, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. Those kids, those are absences that are counted instance.
It goes to the state.
So they're still in teams and everything. We're hit on it.
Is there a certain time of the day that makes it official?
For us, 10 o'clock.
That's what I was wondering.
We look at it and we
So
go,
if they
when
had
is
a
it
doctor's
going to cost
appointment in the morning
us?
and they came back at lunch and finished the day, they'd be absent.
Well, in that situation, if they come back with a doctor's note and they're here for a portion of the day, we still get funding for
Okay.
that student.
Okay.
We're not.
So we
paying
have to
for
mark
it.
in the system as D.
It's marked as a D.
Or medical.
Okay.
I think another thing that's going to help next year, of course, next year, not this year, is they're going to connect it to Skyward, where it's going to be able to do, I guess, some type of mail merge, and it's going to send out those notifications. Because as of right now, I have to do all the counting, I have to get it, and then I'm making the phone calls. I'm calling those kids
So
in.
notify
I'm
parents if your
sending them
child
home.
has.
So it's going to
something-
send, it's either going to send something, I don't know if it'll hit them through email, telephone, or if it's going to send out a letter also. But they've asked for the letter that I send home to kids whenever it's kind of, I guess, something to document, that they've seen it and that they have this many. And we're doing a compliance as far as 90%. So for a semester, you're looking at a kid misses more than 8 days in a semester, they're below that 90. I think it's like 18 or something like that for the year total. And there's some things that we can't help. I mean, we have an 8th grade girl who I talked to the parents at the very beginning of the year, and they knew she was going to be missing multiple days, and it's medical, and she has to see the nurse constantly throughout the day. She deals with infections and stuff to where it gets her out for days at a time, and they said, this is her life. This is what we,
She tried.
and she does try, but here we're affected by it. We had the flu, which hit a lot of our kids. So ultimately, we're trying to be at like 96% or higher for attendance rate, and we're currently hovering at 94%, which I'm learning. So I'm going, okay, well, that's still pretty good, but you get hit. That's where it's one of those, the standards that I don't even know where this is, but they keep track of it, and it's counted either for or against, and that will get hit on that.
One of the things I was just gonna tell you that I learned just from helping my little friend who's on benefits, government benefits, is some of the dentists and things and doctors that they can go to are like Sulphur Springs, whatever. So if they've got a 10 o'clock appointment in Sulphur Springs, they're not coming back to school.
Right.
So I mean, that's just some of that you just can't, you just can't help. I mean,
Which I think
my
the
son
doctors
going,
know if you see where they're coming from.
right, but he's saying if they don't come back to class, if they don't come back to school, it still hits them.
And see, that's hitting one of our 6th grade students, who probably RDO, who, same thing, he has to go to Dallas.
Yeah.
And he's
So he's
diabetic.
gone for the day.
And so I've
Yeah,
talked to
they don't
mom where I'm like, can you just get them here, or can you get them back at some point? And they leave in the morning and they don't come back. And that's a long trip, and that's understandable, but at the same time, we're hit with those. So,
One more thing about attendance, what about the leaving early people? And they're not leaving for
Okay.
appointments, they're just being picked up at 7:30.
all right, now I got
Lots of
hammered.
experience, people just.
I say I got hammered. I had several teachers that got in my ear constantly about that, and so saw that was concerned. So what we're doing now is with the attendance report, I'm also looking at it, I guess, vertically. So even though it's not an absence, I can see where those missed classes are, and and we've made that change where in one given period, if they miss that class 3 times, and it doesn't have to be consecutive, just within a 6-week period. So I've hit some kids up already where it's that 7th, 8th period. They're here, they have no absences,
Friday.
but on my report, they get a +1 or they get a +2. And so if I see a +1 or +2, that doesn't count as an absence against them, but it does in the incentive. So they lose 10 points. For that kid that
If
they
missed that
leave
class 3
8th
times.
period 3 times within a 6 period or 6 weeks period, they lose 10 points.
Texting is not always their fault.
I know, I hate that for the kid, but still,
And we've had some where, we're right here at the primary. So
They just walk
they
over.
pick up a primary kid or they have an
Yeah.
appointment. They come over and they pick up their middle school kid.
And it's always the same time.
It
I mean, I have like 3 in my 8th grade I can think chronically miss at least one day a week because they're just picked up early.
And they're always surprised, like, really? They're gonna get you?
So, kind of summing up the incentive program, I've seen some difference in which it's opened up communication with the kids. I've had parents, even when I handed out, Miss Witt has helped me do
Did
the
you
mail
did
merge,
you ever do that?
and that day for PLC,
Oh.
we handed those out to
All
every
of our
single
kids
kid.
were talking about, after this many points, do I need to get this in the morning?
Right.
They
So-
were
I think that
definitely
helps.
So
talking
they
about
see it. Now there was a potential discouragement, I guess, or some people that thought possibly it could be discouraged. It's one of those things where those kids, and let me pull that up so we can kind of see, because that's what I wanted to do too. Let's pull up 6th grade, and then can y'all see that up there?
Mhm.
So right now, and I told those kids, I told them, if you got 80 points right now, I mean, you are a future leader in our community. You're going to be those guys that you're going to go to college, you're going to do well, you're going to make good money, you're going to be successful, and so that's what I want them to strive for. And then I started talking about if you're at 77, because that means you made A's and B's. No discipline issues, and you've been here every day, then add yourself to that list. And then it finally got to the point where, if you're sitting there in the 60s, you need to figure out what your why is. Why are you here? What are you trying to do? Is it attendance? Is it discipline? Is it your grades? And for a lot of them, it's grades.
Which
But
is
then when
still have another 6 weeks.
They do, so they can add points. But if we look at kids that are right there, like below the bubble,
Like a 54.
okay, we see 54 right there, okay, and we look at who that kid is, and then I can kind of look over there and go, okay, well, they have 2 absences that have counted against them already. We start looking at no access, no lunch detentions, no zaps, and then it's grades. Also, she got C's.
Yeah, no bonus
She's a
points.
dependent.
Yeah.
She's
For minors.
a
See,
chronic 8th period.
And
absentee.
that's the tie where a lot of times it goes, okay, well, they make C's because they don't come to school. Well, they missed 2 days. You know what I mean? They have 2 absences. So a lot of times I hear that, and I was thinking about that earlier when I had this meeting, because I hear that all the time where it's like absences. They're not making good grades in my class because they're never here. And I go, that kid has 2 absences. Are you telling me that kid missed 2 days of school? So that kid right there is a C student because they missed 2 days? I don't think so. I don't. That's an excuse. Yes, do we need to work on attendance, and does she need to be here every single day? Absolutely. And that's what every teacher
Says what?
I mean, like, I really don't even remember seeing her a lot of time. I mean, I have her 8th period, so she may be
I think
Maybe
she may
it's
be
credit.
But if that was the case,
She's probably
Just
credit for
not.
the day,
But
but
if
I
that-
haven't
Yeah.
seen
but
her.
if that's the case, then she would be a plus 1. And she would have 10. I know y'all are so mistrusting of me. So mistrusting. I get that look all the time where I give y'all the information and you go, yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, what
Well,
about
she's not
someone
a
who's
senior.
coming in first period late?
Same thing.
So tardy, I mean, they're tardy.
They
Does
are
a tardy
tardy.
add up to an absence
It
eventually?
depends on what time. And I had a parent even call the last week where they saw that he was accounted for a +1, but they were like, well, he was here and he has a brother who's a 6th grader, so he wasn't counted absent. But that student, the 8th grader, was counted absent. So it allowed us. I mean, the parent knows this incentive is important. The kids know it's important to them. So it made them question something where I had to go back and look and go, those should have been tardies. Because brother's here, he's here, they're here at the same time.
Unless brothers, lollygagging around to get there.
Yeah, I don't think that was
The other
the
one's
case.
getting straight in there, and the other.
You have a
Trust
teacher.
me, if it was out of these 2 kids, it would have been the 6th grader that was lollygagging and was the last one there.
Yeah.
And I trust you. I think
But
I know.
that's just
I think I know who that
consistency
kid's
with
first period
teachers.
teacher was. And if he wasn't there, he would have marked him not there.
That'd be me.
So it's making them look at things and be a little bit more knowledgeable, and at least they're looking at it, accountable. So looking at kids that, and then we're going to move on, trust me, have a 44, okay? So is it discouraging to that kid where now all of a sudden they see that and they go, I'm not going to come to school anymore. I'm going to give up. I'm going to do that. And I don't think that's the case. I don't. Because that kid, if we look, I mean, he's a kid that he has one absence or either a +1. But it's here with the discipline.
Oh, yeah.
ISS, his
He's in
lunch
ZAP,
detentions, he has ZAP, so that's 2 ZAPs right there in that 6
He's
weeks.
chronically tardy to classes, so he's lunch detention from tardies.
And that's
or
probably
zaps from tardies.
And that's where on those tardies and everything, because they get those zaps,
It's like 2 tardies
and
a
then
lunch
those
detention,
tardies,
right? Is it 2 tardies.
2
a lunch?
tardies and yes, or 2 tardies and a lunch
And then
detention,
3
and
zap.
3 tardies is a
I
zap.
think so, yeah.
Yeah,
And then so once it comes down,
And
the only
then
way
it
to bring it
sees.
up is grades.
grades. So, and this again, this is a C student. I mean, we look at all those 4s there, and I'm going, that's. I mean, I know attendance and everything else, but
We do have
man,
one C
we
students.
should have more kids making A's and B's. I mean, it is not that hard. We talk about rigor and everything, but I mean, it's still middle school, and these kids are capable. So that's the most frustrating part. When looking at the incentive program, that's the thing that comes to my mind when I'm sitting there going, our kids make too many C's. We have too many C students. We do. That's the area I'd like to target. So, with that being said, everybody like the incentive program? Do y'all have anything? Is there any concerns? I know we talked about several of those, and thank goodness I even have it on video, so I can go back and watch it and take some more notes, more thorough notes.
I
I
think
think it's a good
lot.
idea.
I think the first semester there were some kinks, but I feel like they've been.
We had, and with the first year, and I think we're going to revisit it again at the end of the year and go, okay, what did we like? What did we not like? Do we need to go to 70? I mean, I'm sitting there going, okay, hold them to accountable. I'm going, okay, do we keep it at a certain level for 6th grade? And does that point
You can even
change
do
for
60
7th and
first
8th
semester, 70 for second.
for 2nd semester? And we thought about that just to make it a little bit more.
You
But
do it once.
I think
Right.
that's a good
Shoot
idea.
for a
And
little
then let's,
higher
Right.
goal.
you know, shoot up.
Mhm.
Growing
Because
into
in class, a 70 is passing,
Right.
not a 60. So that kind of sense.
And
just
with this big trip,
You just have to be careful because when you get a situation like the 2 brothers where one's 6, one's 8, the 6th grade could bring the 8th grader down. You kind of have to watch that.
Give everybody only 60 points for the first semester, get them back into being in school again. 70 points per second.
Yes,
semester.
and
For
again,
all grades.
because still, when looking at it, after the first, looking at after the first 6 weeks of this semester, we still have a lot of kids that are eligible, even if they're right there on the bubble.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have several kids that
They
are
still
going to
have
drop
grades for
off.
the 6 weeks to come in.
Mhm.
So I just wonder.
So this is all through T. This is just everything through T4.
Right.
This is only just term 4. Haven't put anything for 5 or 6.
Oh, that's one I was thinking of. T5 should probably have.
So
some more.
T5.
That-
Okay,
that
yes,
one I was talking
yes,
about, like,
yes,
Where's it for 6 weeks? She's missed more than 2 days
absolutely.
or more at ESN class. So that's true. You haven't done T5. I think.
So I just
So we
have,
were both
Yeah.
so if you have a kid that hits a certain low level, and the only thing they can do is grades, but you look to see that it's discipline that's really getting them, could you offer them, you know, a correctional plan that, and a contract, and could they contract for more points if they do these sort of things discipline-wise?
We
Could that be
Like
something to
earn
look at?
points back.
So, because that's more correctional than punishment.
And we've talked about that. It's one where you would have to do
You
it.
have to do a
You would have
contract,
to do it one-on-one.
individual contract.
And then there, are you looking at potential some backlash as far as, well, you know, I know that kid and they were able to, and my kid wasn't offered that. We looked at that on the incentive, even the fundraiser.
I think
Like
we have
where
to do
if a
like
kid
bottom
did
out.
certain much, like as far as selling or potentially get to a certain point, then they received additional points toward their incentive because of their work ethic there on the fundraiser. There's a lot of things, but the more you start putting into it, the more of a monster this thing becomes.
Right, it's true.
It is.
We've got it right now with the mail merge and the system that we have set up now. It's about as simple as it can get. But individually for those type of kids, absolutely. If you're looking at a kid who has 3 absences, so they have 0 points for attendance, and we wanted to. I would love to. Okay, the last 6 weeks, you gotta have perfect attendance.
Yeah, contract with them. For
You got
10
perfect
points.
attendance, and you get 10 points
thing,
back.
The biggest thing.
Yes,
is
and you,
Right.
you contract with the parent, you contract with the kid.
Right.
I mean, to me, if our incentive is to grow these kids, I just think there has to be some way that if you get yourself, you dug a hole,
How to get out of it?
how do you get out?
Because they have to learn that.
And
They
now,
have to
and
learn.
if
Some
some
people
point
are
in
not
time
listening.
they don't dig out a hole, then okay, you don't go.
And
But
ask that kid to make all A's is going to be rare.
But you don't have to do it for every single kid that bottoms out. Just because you don't have to do the same thing for everybody.
No.
It's not the same. It's what's fair.
Mhm.
There's a big difference between doing the same thing for everybody and what's fair. So you don't have to have a system of saying, if you get to this point, we're going to contract with you. Yeah, that's a student by student basis, I think. And what you feel like and what she feels like is the best thing for that kid, not for just because it's the same that we're going to do for everybody.
Because I know first semester there were some kids who they didn't get to go on the incentive trip that
Mm-hmm.
kids that should have. And I'm thinking of one boy in particular where, it wasn't necessarily attendance. He maybe had one attendance. He had a couple things, blips on it. But, it's a kid that you would think would be an all-A student. Smart kid, has a smart older brother that's, and he had C's. And, it's just one of those things where at the end of it, there's going to be people that you're going to look and see and go, God, that kid, I think they really should. I would like for them to be able to go. And there's going to be kids on there that you go, that kid, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, okay, we have to be accountable to them. Not that we're trying to make kids not be able to go, right? But if it's a kid who academically is not there, then, they should be getting zaps. Which leads us into our next thing. Are we ready? Are we ready to, well, we'll get there. Okay, are we ready to kind of move on?
Sure.
yes,
Okay, I do appreciate you.
I do,
guys
and
being
I
here.
think it's great what you're doing.
It is. It
Wow.
is good.
I know it's a beast.
It is a beast, but you have been very helpful in aiding
Incentive
me
for our
and
kids in any
supporting me.
manner is going to
Right.
be beneficial.
So let's go to the lunch detention form. And this part's going to go. This part should go a little faster. Yeah, I'm sorry. So let's look at the lunch detention form. We have lunch detention, of course. Their name goes in there. It deciphers it from 6th, 7th, and 8th. And this is where I want to get better at looking at the data here, and not just where it's like, okay, what do you do in your class, or what, but at the same time, okay, what are some things that we can possibly change or do, or what's the reasoning behind
I've never
this?
assigned a lunch detention. I don't even know why you assigned
Well, because you're an amazing teacher.
it. No, I'm
Very
just
good.
trying to figure it out. I'm like, okay, when do you ever give one?
I haven't done
What do I
that.
give it for?
Okay, and that's another thing I want to discuss, because it has a place for teacher name and the reason.
I wonder if y'all
Okay.
need a checklist.
That's what I want to talk about, because when looking at this, the main reason I'm doing this, I got this from a neighboring school as far as how they do lunch detention and discipline, because it makes it very easy to document it. And then here I learned we had to change the ZAP system to fit this, because when doing the incentive, I was having to do a lot of cutting and pasting and counting, and it was not fun. It's too much
We need
work.
to make sure that is like an icon on everybody's desktop.
I'm making an icon.
I need to
just
do
drew it
yeah.
out.
I need
Yeah, I did too.
someone who speaks that language.
But
You
definitely,
just grab the address
and
and pull it over.
And that's something where at the beginning of the year next year, I know a lot of it's looking at how can we make this better, is where when we're having meetings, we all do it together and we
Right.
have it, and then know how to update it, because I'm doing it by 6 weeks
Yes.
to break it up, so it doesn't just merge all the data for the entire year and then I'm still picking through it. But I like this because when you do the little report there, it gives the students' names, and as long as it's spelled correctly, and that's another area where we gotta work on.
You can do it down there, and then he's at the two too.
Who's
Drop down, but you have to put every kid's name in the system
Yeah, but you
for
just
a
make
drop
the
down.
6th grade form, 7th grade form, and 8th grade form.
For each 6 weeks, though. 3, 4, 8 next semester.
So we need to work on one, being able to spell our kids' names correctly, because
I'll tell you,
I
that
did this
form,
first.
I'm
Yes.
like, what is this name?
Yeah, there's some names where I still don't know how to spell
You can do
correctly,
that
and I
because you
deal
can
with this
copy your
kid
form.
a lot.
Hey, you can do that. You can copy your form for each 6 weeks, and so you could have, don't make it mandatory, don't make it a required question, and you could have your drop down for 6th grade, and then I would just skip that one. Your drop down for 7th grade, I would answer that one. Your drop down for 8th grade, I would skip that
So
one.
it's one form for
So
6
it's
weeks.
one form for the
And it has
6
all
weeks,
your
and then,
grades.
and then all you have to do for the next 6 weeks is make a copy and change it, and it'll change the URL, because it'll be a separate copy.
Or would it be easier to put in their student ID number, which is gonna be consistent? I mean,
No, we won't, but you have to look at the student ID number.
I said, what's your student ID?
Yeah.
It'll pop up. When you type it in, it'll pop up their
You
name.
just
Oh,
have
I
a
see,
drop-
I see.
drop
Okay,
copy, so
we're
I'll
gonna
show
have to
you how do that.
revisit this because,
Keep it simple.
yes.
We can do that.
And
Just
this
spell
is
it
not,
out your kids' name.
that, honestly, if we just put the kid's name in correctly, it's
Yeah.
helpful. And it's all there together, and I'm able to decipher how many they have. So if there are, and it's another thing where it's all caps, I believe.
It makes a difference.
Some people do all caps, some people do last name first. So
I
it's
can fix
something
this
when,
for you.
well, and later you're going to.
I can fix this.
Like
You
this
are.
one.
Next 6 weeks, I will fix this for you.
Well, we can even wait, if we have to wait till next year,
I can
even,
fix this for you.
okay, then we're gonna do that then.
We're gonna try it out.
We'll try it out. That's what I like about it.
I can fix it.
And so this is another thing that it helps me because like I looking at this, I'm going, hey, listen,
6th grade needs to get it.
I'm telling you, but for the first semester, it was the 7th grade.
Yeah.
So I'm able to at least look at these things and I can
we're
go,
honestly cracking down more now than what we did. I think we were more lenient at the beginning of the
Good.
year. Because they're 6th grade, they were learning. Now we're cracking
They were all
down.
fifth graders.
Yes.
and you know what? The data supports that. That you are cracking down more this semester. So, and then this is where I want to clean things up a little bit. Because,
Teacher.
well, by teacher, as you say, yes, Miss Kendall, you have been cracking down because normally I'm looking for another teacher that usually is winning the race. But right now, I think it's a tie between you and
Tucker.
so you can tell.
Mine is, and I have a sub.
And you have some other ones here too. So your name, and I got to figure out why is it. You know what I mean? It may
But yes,
be.
you got another one.
It may be the reason because you're in there a few times as I scan
Mine is-
across.
When I'm absent, there's a sub. If they get their name right down by the sub, they get it. Lunch attention from me.
Oh, really?
And
Like,
so,
that's my punishment to them. for having
Really?
their name
I
right
want
down.
them in ISS.
and that's where
Well, a lot of
So
times,
that's
like now,
not
okay,
sub.
if the sub were to send them to the office because they're so bad, the office already handled that.
well,
But this is like, they were trying talkative, they were unfocused or whatever. You
and
get a
it
lunch
depends on
attention.
what sub you got.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because there are some subs where it's
Well,
like,
I have some, most of them go right down a whole lot. Go right down just a couple names.
Mhm.
I just ask for a name. I say, you tell me who is disrupting class, and I tell the kids before I leave, I seek the harshest punishment possible, whatever that is. And I'm nary to have a name.
and I know that's one thing Mr. Sorensen was really good about is discussing that and having those remarks and announcements and stuff in an area where hopefully, potentially, I can get it to where I too can make those announcements and at least put that in the ear of the kids first thing in the morning when we do have a lot. But this is the area where I want to clean up and where I'm wanting some
What's the question mark?
suggestions.
I don't know why.
Suggestions is
I don't know why.
so this would help me where instead of just putting a vague reason because this is where it gets interesting. I did like it at the beginning of the year because I had a parent that would call and several parents that would call and be like, why did my kid get a lunch attention? And I was able to go instead of, well, let me get with that teacher and I'll call you back. And I would simply just, well, let me look. And they had detail. I mean, they had several sentences written and the reason, and I was able to tell them exactly why your student got a lunch attention and what's going on in the classroom without going down and talking to the teacher. But it gets a little crazy. So what I would like to do is maybe come up with a list where for the next 6 weeks we can put a multiple choice or whatever, where
And then other.
that
You
way.
can do other, and then you can have an explanation of other, and then leave it as a little blank that they can write in.
Okay, we'll work on that also.
Did you can obviously see of the basic tardies?
That's what I'm looking like.
Incomplete
Tardies,
work.
because anytime Jen does all that, and I think
I was gonna
Miss
say
Cash
tardies,
puts it in.
okay, okay.
So they
So
put it
we
in.
don't do that, so we
Right.
don't necessarily do
The
that.
cheating on progress assessment.
Tardies,
And
Talking
it's
while I was
What are you
talking.
doing?
2/27.
incomplete
Talking while I was
work.
talking twice.
I
So,
thought
and-
incomplete work
okay.
was that.
And this leads me to another discussion. We have one teacher, and not that there's just one, but looking at this today, there was one where I'm looking at many lunch detentions, and it was like not getting work done or off task. Where was it? Did I pass my
And
reading?
that's just hard to see. It's just
Didn't
hard
come
to
to
read.
Buzz. If you don't come to Buzz, that's a lunch
Late
detention.
10 minutes
Mhm.
for Buzz.
Um,
So Buzz is,
To me, a lunch detention's a lesser than a Buzz.
It was like incomplete work or something. I don't know where it went. But it was,
Incomplete work should be that.
I was
Should be
that's
the
what I
same.
was-
Yeah.
and
Did not
that's
have homework.
Right.
But that's still,
Now that should be
that should be that if you didn't.
exactly. So it allows me to where that's not even an option. You know what I mean? Where and that's a discussion we need to have, or I need to have, where it's a zap,
What-
not a lunch detention.
yeah, we need to know what the difference is.
Well, if that kid doesn't have, I think it's if it's a kid not doing work within the class. I don't know if it's not homework or if it's something that they're just not doing, and then they say, okay, well, what have you been doing?
That's
Okay,
fine.
you've not been doing anything. Well, it's
That's
discipline
fine.
and management. Yes.
Okay.
Is the kid
So-
talking them into a lunch detention instead of a zap? I can't stay after school when you got a lunch detention.
And for some, I'm telling you, it becomes where, because our kids don't drive, because they can't get a hold of a parent, and we can't just leave them up here and then not have transportation, where I've had to be creative and go, all right, for this zap, you're not going to band today, and you're going to serve a lunch detention. And so, and then she puts it in as a zap instead of a lunch detention, so they get the 3 points. Because
Right.
we want the time, we want the work, we want to make sure the correct points are assessed, but it's gotten better. And I've even started making phone calls more as far as the parents, where I've taken the phone out of kids' hands, where they're sitting there in the office and it's just, well, I mean, I don't know, I can maybe do, and I've gone, ma'am, your child has this and this, we need them to stay, can they stay till 4:30 today? Because a kid, that's another area where kid and parent on the phone discussing, can they or cannot come to ZAP.
It shouldn't be a cannot. It's, hey,
Right.
I got
I
that,
have to.
I have to stay. It puts you out, so discipline me when you get home.
It should. And early on in the
We should
year,
type up a thing they say to their parents, like when I went to, I have that, like
Yeah, you almost
literally-
did, it really.
they should have a thing
almost.
they have to read to their parents.
Right.
I
and then
have
you-
that.
Speakerphone in your office.
I regret to inform you that I have that today,
Seriously, because you have to get
and I
that.
have to stay
Say
until
an
such and
automated
such time.
voice.
Yes.
I apologize for the inconvenience that this is gonna cause you, mother, and I will pay for it by doing so many chores when I get home.
I mean, you could literally have a little thing that they
in
have
the
to read.
perfect world.
Yeah.
And that's another thing where I've seen this year where, I mean, it's easy to say go to ISS, and if it's a kid that I know they're going to get work in the classroom, they're going to do work, I don't want to put them in there and have them. So we've been missing athletics, PE.
Yes.
I'll pull a kid from PE in a heartbeat, those 6th graders, and even athletics. Athletics is a little bit harder because for boys, simply based on when it is during the day, it's at the very end. I've been taking them out of band, choir, any elective. If they have multiple electives, I've taken them out of career investigation or health, just to get
And
those
it should
get that
be
stuff done. So,
Leave them in the classroom.
and then for those kids that I know they're not going to do much anyway, they can go to ISIS and they can work on all their work in ISIS. So, again, that's one of those individual bases when you know who the kids are. So the lunch detentions, I know Miss Wood, you're over there doodling. If we just come up with,
I've got tardies, buzz, discipline in class, class disruption, kind of the same thing.
so it'd be,
That's all I wanna say.
Cheating, cussing.
well, I think inappropriate,
Inappropriate
well, just maybe even language or verbiage or something, you know what I mean?
Language, you just literally put language in.
Language, and it could even be, just rude or disrespectful language.
Disrespectful.
Disrespectful, or,
Yeah.
but I want to be able to use this as
I have a lot of kids who just, in the state of be sixth grade, they do not have their supplies. They don't have
materials,
pencils,
like
they don't have
materials.
whatever, they don't have their journal, whatever it is. Like
Materials
I've assigned
slash
several just
supplies.
for it's like consistently not having their supplies. And I mean, I know that's not always their fault, they can't drive to Walmart to go get pencils, but we can find something, I don't know. I mean, I've like run out of pencils, I've given out all my pencils.
Well, I sell them for a jacket buck.
I walked in the class the other day and 2 kids didn't have a pencil, and it's like you can walk in the hall
Mm-hmm.
and look
Yes.
down. I mean, I pick up I don't know how many pencils a day.
Well, I do collect them off my floor and I have them in a little tub, but then those are gone, and the next day again, it's
You're
just.
back out in the hallway.
I know, it's just, but
It's
it's,
like
but
kids
it's
drop
consistently,
You
it's
used to
the same
when
way.
name tags,
So-
you could have them trade a name tag, and
Yes.
you get your pencil back.
I used to do a shoe.
Right.
I did a shoe in fifth grade.
I've done a
I was like,
shoe
I got
before
those
until
early.
you hit that one kid and it's like
I don't want
Nope.
your shoe, just take the pencil, just take the pencil. But I mean, I've assigned so much students, it's consistent, like there's some students that are just consistently
Right.
not showing up. I mean, kids walk in, they don't have their binder, they're like, oh, I
Right.
don't have it today. Are you, like, you don't have anything?
Warm up.
Right.
See, I mean
But
it's
that's classroom discipline, I think.
I think so.
Like,
Writing on the
Yeah.
table with marker, talking, not
Oh,
telling
yeah.
I get that.
multiple
But,
lies.
but
Which
if
one?
you
The
put,
writing on the
if you put
pencils,
choice
pencil
here,
or
and then
pen.
you have other, and then your next thing down here is explanation,
Uh-huh.
make it optional. If they want to write more, they can.
So it'll group all the others.
Yes.
And
No,
then
it'll say other, and then you can say specify below.
What are you saying, like when it comes up on this?
Right,
reason
when I-
it
Yes.
comes up
when I
as
get to
other.
this
Say
point, 'cause
other.
a lot of times it'll, if there's not so many, I think this works. Tell me if I'm wrong. It goes, if there's only so many choices, it does a pie graph as long as it can, right? And then when it's not legible, then it goes to another way of charting it.
haven't
Because I think at
used-
some point, this will
I
actually,
always make mine into Excel.
okay,
Well, I'll probably always make a pie graph by grade.
because there's only 3 choices though,
Right.
because of the number of responses.
Right.
So I think once it gets, like with the teachers, I think I think it does a pie graph. It may, I don't know, I may be
It may do it.
wrong.
But your reasons autograph once you've given it just these choices.
Right.
The reason
Because I'm
why
saying
this
right
isn't
now
gonna
it's just too
graph
many
is because
choices.
it's just open, it's
Yes.
open-ended question. They
Mhm.
can't graph an open-ended
They'll do
question.
a pie graph if you have the teacher as a drop down.
Yes.
With all of our teachers
Yes, I
as a
think
drop
it's,
down.
yes, I think
typing our
it's
names
whether
in.
you're typing it in or whether it's a
Good
choice.
point.
Do a drop down on the teacher's
Yes.
name. So we can just go down and select our
That's easier
teacher
to
Drop
name.
down for teacher grade.
Cause then that,
So for teacher, then you would
It
have,
would
it would
probably-
just have to
cause then
be,
you're not gonna have me as 3 different spots over there. It
Right.
would
it's gonna
have,
be one
all
no
Yes,
matter
so
what.
then
Yeah.
you need a drop down for teacher name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Need to learn how to do a drop.
I say to do it, I've never done it, so this one.
I love.
She's a
Google
Google
Forms.
form
I love Google
guru.
Forms.
But yeah, I think the drop down would be good.
Yeah.
And then a drop down for
And
the
then drop
reason.
down for the explanation.
Yeah.
I
Well, I'm
help
just
you.
like,
I
you
help
do,
you.
you do help me.
But I see this. See, I'm visual. I'm like, oh, yes.
Yeah. I think you need a drop down
It's
for
the math,
everything.
the math
I
science
think
is
he would
the-
come up with a better graph.
It is good.
for you.
It has been very, this has been very good.
Okay, what other
so I'll catch
options
up
do
on
you
the
want besides tardies, buzz,
Tardies, buzz,
discipline in class? Do you want to put discipline in class
or
and
just
class
classroom, let's
disruption
just
same?
put classroom discipline / disruption.
Slash disruption.
So
Language, disrespectful.
Well, I think language,
What if it's out somewhere beyond the classroom? Is there anybody reporting, like you're saying, outside?
usually that would be like Coach Stanley.
If she hears about there, she
Or Coach
hears.
White, when they hear, sometimes the language, if it's, they send them to me. They have.
So do
they've
you
done it.
still want that option?
If it's in the classroom,
In the classroom, it would be classroom discipline disruption. Do we need to put down here what we're talking about here?
I know, because then I think that will just, that'll make things more.
Okay, what about
just is
disrespectful
general
behavior?
classroom behavior.
Yeah, but then that's classroom.
Misbehavior, okay, that's the
But
classroom.
Disrespectful behavior falls in the class.
Okay,
Disres-
cheating, is that,
I don't know if we have to define it as classroom. You know what I'm saying?
just put
That thus it's
discipline disruption?
I mean, wherever it is, yeah, it could be on a field trip. It would still qualify.
But I still like the idea of disrespect, or because that's different to me,
Okay.
right? Because then that targets something-
Disruption isn't necessarily disrespect.
Right.
Okay.
and that could be one where that can fall underneath the substitute category.
Yes. And cheating. That was up there. I was just trying to look
But
at
sometimes cheating, I think.
I
That
assigned,
was
I
one-
assigned cheating because it was a daily assignment, it was not a test. And I emailed all the parents saying,
Okay.
your child was cheating, I dropped the grade to a 50,
But
and
you
they
do
have a
have
lunch
the
teaching
other,
So,
that if it didn't fit into this category.
Let's leave cheating
it's
there, because I know
outlawed.
even Miss Gould put some in.
now if it was
There
like cheating
was
on a
a-
test, I would be sending them to the office.
Right.
That,
And
that's more,
That's what happened
Severe.
with those students. They were sent to the office, and then it was put in as multiple days.
So that would be under
lunch
other, is that what
detentions.
you're saying?
So would cheating be under other, or do you want cheating
No,
as an
I leave
option?
cheating on there.
Cheating
I
is
will
a
look at your list and what other things do we want on there that's specified, or everything else is gonna go under other. Tardies, I got,
Tardies.
incomplete
See, that should
work.
not be on there. Incomplete words,
Should
there's
be on
13 of them, and that should be a
Okay,
zero.
okay.
So should,
Substitute behavior for teacher, that's gonna be disruption, discipline,
Cussing
That's
should
it.
be.
progress assessment.
language, I'm gonna put foul.
Would it be cheating on a daily assignment, and if it's cheating on a test, that's something different?
I would think if it's cheating on a test, then that would be
That's
something
not
that's
just a-
sent
So this is
to.
on
So cheating on a daily
daily,
assignment.
yeah, that's what happened.
To throw in trash.
not bus,
That
but
would
that
be
would be,
just
but that's just
disruption
disruption,
or-
okay.
But
Walking around, just having other.
Oh, the left
Disruption.
classroom helped us a lot.
That's disruption.
what about
Chewing
chewing
gum.
gum?
Because that is.
Yeah, we could do that.
Like gum / candy or something?
In the hallway, whatever.
Yeah.
Because you said no drinks, food, whatever in the hallway, so that would be gum
Mhm.
/ candy /
Food,
drink.
just
So for the
food,
one
drink,
kid who
liquid.
has an anxiety eating.
And we just need, we just need to educate the teachers of what that means.
Right.
Except for the one kid who has an anxiety.
Failure to return journal.
No, that's me. That's me. What did you
That's
say?
pretty
The
deep.
journal!
But that could
It
be your
is.
other, that's
See,
your
No, it can be.
And that's the one thing where
It's
I
probably with that one.
But that's
She can't
discipline.
get anything done.
But
because she doesn't have her stuff.
discipline.
Yes,
That's not
it is,
being
it is.
disciplined.
I'm just saying that.
That's not,
I was like,
you know,
But
that's
But is
not.
that
It's
the one like
specific,
for
I like it.
materials? For materials?
Oh, you want to do?
Do you want one on there for lack of materials and supplies?
I mean, I can put it as.
Because we can
Classroom
have as
behavior.
many, but it allows us to target it. Not that I want a whole
Right,
bunch of things where they hollered or they threw
Well,
trash.
I'm
or
gonna
they-
be the only one that does it.
Well-
It's just frustrating
well,
that they
no.
don't have their stuff. to
I
do
have not
work.
assigned a lunch detention, but knowing that that's what we do,
Yeah, I might do
I
that.
would probably do that.
And no, the first time they don't
So
have
then-
it, I wouldn't. But if it's
Right.
becomes a chronic issue, which
So
No
no
pen, no pencil,
materials.
no
it's
vote
always
paper.
every day they don't
Don't
have
Or
have
it.
they don't
folder.
have
Materials.
their folder with them.
They don't have their AR book.
I did my
They don't
homework, I just
have-
left it at home in my notebook, I don't have my notebook.
Yes, exactly. That, to me, if it's what's happening multiple times, that's when I started doing lunch.
Because my goal is for this is looking at it and being able to target things
How
that,
about irresponsibility?
that
It just came to me. Go ahead.
So what I was saying is, I would like to target these certain ones so that
Yeah.
when we when we do PLCs, okay, that allows our team impact maybe to focus on certain areas. You know what I mean? That we see
That's
as a
true.
problem
And you
in
can
our
have lead
class.
teachers in those PLCs that would do that grade level ones explain
Mhm.
the new form and kind of. You know,
I think it
you
would,
have a grade level one.
I think if we did make a materials thing, one of the things the student council has been entertaining the idea of, and we just haven't got it together yet, is actually in between each passing period have a store where they could actually purchase pencils and things for,
With jacket
with a
puffs.
jacket puff,
Roll out
and
a
then that
cart
way
right
they
there.
are being responsible, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you could just keep a card back here.
Well, I wonder now that we have somebody in here 3 days a week, could do that, and we have helpers in
And
here,
we have
we might
plenty of
could
kids. That's
actually
going to
do
lead
that.
us to one of our
We
last.
might could do that and just have a store that's here that allows, us to do that. So do we wanna put lack of materials, or what? How do you say?
Leave it there.
Supplies or materials.
And
It
even
was-
if it's there and never used,
It's just there.
it's just there, so it's not that big of a deal.
Right,
I'd
yeah.
rather it be
Yeah.
there and then not ever utilized
I
than
do
not
send
be
some
there.
students to Miss Dudley, but I know her supplies are also for true needs.
Mhm.
Yes.
And I don't want to send kids all the time and they're not really true needs, they're just being careless.
And we are trying to create a closet in the cafeteria where there's supplies and things. Like for Mr. Parcher, I pulled something for him the other day. So not that it falls under those materials, but as far as clothes, jackets,
Needs.
hygiene products.
Those are more needs.
I
Okay.
just mentioned that because that would fall right in line with our kids. You know, they
What are the
have needs.
Mhm.
You know, and some of them are.
But those
Pens,
that have needs
pencils,
still
paper.
usually have their supplies. Leland always has his supplies. So you can
Yeah,
tell which
she's
ones are being
kids.
careless and which ones
Mhm.
truly need it.
Well, the kids that walk in my class and they don't have a pencil, and I go, "Where's your pencil?" Without my locker.
See, sometimes I sign a pass. I'm like, well, I'll
Next
sign your
time, bring
pass.
your
I
locker.
do too. I
Yeah.
signed it.
We don't have class in your locker.
I like that. We don't have class in your lockers. So we don't have to there.
Okay. We're gonna go on to the Zach real quick, and it's gonna parallel the lunch detention. It should go very quick. I know we're probably way over time on what I told you guys as far as the meeting.
These are things we need to talk about.
As long
They
as,
are.
As long as we
I
see
enjoy
changes,
talking.
we're okay with it.
Zach. This is something that we kind of went into this system, and it's put a little bit more work on those people do that, because then once it gets there, they have to log them. But y'all were logging them already, right?
Yeah.
Or putting them in the system. So again, it has student name, spelling is important. It may be a situation there where we don't necessarily need a reason,
I just put the teacher
specific
who
reason.
assigned
So
it.
it may be where we do a drop down again
But the teacher
for the
needs.
teacher name.
But
So
AR in there though, because I think we need to be tracking.
we do need to track AR. And that's something where, even at one of the last meetings and workshops I went to, we discussed AR and the reason behind AR and
I think AR is.
how we're
It gets
utilizing
people
it.
to read. I'm all about
I'm,
reading.
It is.
I like it.
We're not doing it the way it was.
The frustrating
Right.
part is when I get a zap for someone who made
We're
a
not doing
60
it
on
right.
an AR test.
No, we're not
But
doing
zeros aren't permitted.
Yeah.
Not 60s are permitted.
Yeah.
Right.
That's when I get frustrated with that, when I have
Yeah.
40 kids in the cafeteria because literally they just failed an AR test.
Yeah, they're
it.
trying.
They took it.
Yeah.
So,
We
that's
send
the
them
hard
a
part.
study,
Yes.
and they write summaries. We don't send them.
But I always put AR just so we can keep track of how many ARs are being.
I was one at the high school saying we need to have AR up here too.
I
Kids
had
need
AR
it.
in high school, that's the only reason.
Only
I
if we're
did.
gonna implement it well. We are not implementing it well.
Because there should not
I'm
be,
all for
with AR, there should not be any discipline, and truly, there's not even, I think, even supposed to be any grading involved with AR. The way it was set up and
Incentive.
designed, it is all an incentive
Well,
thing
we did that in
and
elementary.
awarded towards.
The incentive.
Right.
But what happened was then kids weren't trying to do that and they didn't care about the incentives because the incentives weren't all that grand. And so then they decided to put a grade to it because they thought that was gonna make a difference.
And then
We're
your
doing
It
reader,
makes reading a
We're
day.
doing it.
then
for
your
them.
reader is penalized because now they got to get so many points in 6 weeks, and this kid has to read.
Then you have a son who is 12th grade reading level as a 6th grader and he's reading books he should not be reading.
Like content,
Mhm.
that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That
if that
is.
has reading level, it's going to be more mature content.
Yes.
And we have several kids on.
Yeah, but I let them read, like if they're already at a 12th grade reading level, they are allowed to read 6th grade
Yeah,
level
we,
books. They're in
they
6th grade,
weren't back in that
they're
day.
children.
No, that was
They
not-
had to read on their level.
They had to read on their
Yeah.
level. And then the book is this thick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, that's not gonna
And
Yeah.
the content, it's tough to find
Yes.
work. Oh, it was
books where there's
inappropriate
not
content.
language and there's not
Mhm.
sexual content.
Which is why you let them read on their grade level if they're higher.
Right.
So the maturity.
Then the parents can decide whether or not they can
Yes,
read those
right,
books outside
yes.
of class.
Right, they pick something that I was like, go ask the parents first.
Yeah.
So I think the Zap thing has been working pretty good. It's made it a lot easier.
But we want to do a drop down box.
We do want to do a drop down.
Here's my question. When,
'Cause
when a
then
teacher
it-
assigns AR, I put their name /AR. So you know which teacher assigned AR. So I don't know if you want that or not.
So
Not if
you're
we
the
have a
reason
separate drop down
behind-
for AR.
You're the reason. Yes.
Like, yeah, say Tucker
You're-
/AR,
right.
you know, Peterson. That way you know it's the teacher, but it's an AR issue. We don't have to keep doing that.
But see, I don't think if we do,
They'll
where were
skip-
you saying as far as AR?
Cause then the
Like way
teachers
down at the bottom,
decide.
that Tucker's name says
Uh-huh.
Tucker/AR. So she assigned that specifically for AR, because they didn't take a test, or they didn't finish reading or something.
Okay, if there's a
So I don't know if you want the AR connected to the teacher to assign it or not, or if you just
No,
want the AR
we
data.
just need to know, like, so there could be a button that is,
Just AR.
like, how would you decipher it though?
Well,
Between non and
The
AR?
teachers always write it. On the Zap form always says like AR test, so I can,
But as far as this, like, if we wanted to look at the data saying, okay, we have so many ARs here, where it could do like a pie chart or something, so that we can maybe bring something to the table and say, look,
yes,
we have this many zaps
like
and
50% of our
like-
zaps are AR.
or 40.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm throwing out a number. Just say with the pie chart, you can see what
Right,
percentage
but
of your
still,
zaps
we're
are
able
AR.
to look at it and go, okay, out of all our zaps, 40 or 50% of them are AR. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
So it's just a matter of having drop down with teacher's name,
AR and tardies.
and then AR
And then
separate,
tardies separate.
and then tardies separate.
Or
So
how
we
about down
know to just do ARs as ARs, not worry about who the teacher signed it.
And then
Or a separate, have a drop down, how about this? Have a drop down for teacher, then have a whole nother question that just has zap, AR, tardy.
Okay. So incomplete work, basically. Incomplete work would be like the zap stuff.
Or
So,
incomplete
okay.
work.
So then they
AR
are
and
Incomplete
AR.
work, so it'd be a completely different question. Incomplete work, it's giving you another button to hit for each kid that comes through.
And
But
then
incomplete work,
incomplete
AR,
work.
tardies.
Are
Because
you
then we're
just-
able to even determine how many of these are for tardies.
Yes, you can do that.
Yeah, which then you need, for the teacher's name drop down, you need to have office as a teacher's office.
So if
Or,
a kid's
because
tardy,
Jan's
you
the one
have
who gives
zap,
me the tardy
Is that what we're
names.
3 tardies equals a zap,
3
and that
tardies.
comes from the office.
But why do we
Yes.
need to know that? Because if it's listed here, we don't need
Well,
to
he's
know
saying we
there.
need to have 2 drop down. So have like a teacher's name drop down and then
Right.
the reason.
But you don't, as long as you don't make it mandatory, you don't have to have it.
Yeah,
If it's
there
an
is something
office, you just don't have to put it.
Oh, so,
As long
If
as
you
it's
don't
not a
make it
required
mandatory, I just skip
question,
the teacher.
you can
okay.
skip
Well,
teacher.
if it's one where, if you see it, but when you get it through email,
Jan,
For
they their
tardies?
email, she'll send me, hey, here's the name for tardies, and I forward it to you or Kristen or it's Fridays. If there's people for
So
tardies.
we'll just know, if it's specific for a teacher, we'll put the teacher.
that you get
If not, we'll skip that and go on into,
or is Jan's name in
Did you put Jan's name, or she could be the teacher?
there? Or drop down.
I mean, you could, it's just not.
If you don't make it mandatory, then I can skip that.
Yes.
They'll let me go on.
Yeah, but what if, okay, but you're putting them in,
Yes.
so it's not where a teacher will. And we'll just have
The
to
only
make
one
sure
put 'em in
that
are
It's just
you,
the three of us.
You-
Yeah, her or Kristen.
Yeah.
Coach Dennis has been in
So you just need to show her the form. Make
Sure.
sure Dennis
Okay.
has the form.
But if I assign,
there. You don't assign zaps. You do, but it's still
He does.
paper for you.
okay,
It's
We're
still paper
tracking.
So
for
we're not
you.
doing-
We're tracking.
Right.
No, yeah, this is for us who do the zaps.
okay.
So when that kid shows up, they come pick the
That
zap
would
forms.
simplify.
Yeah.
Right.
They pick them up out of my box and they take them, and then once they have them in that room,
So
then
you
they
can
go
just
in
say
and
when
they
they
put
show
them
up.
in the
If they don't
system.
show up, then he has to.
Gotcha.
Right.
That works.
Now, when we fix the AR though, they won't be going to zap for AR in the future.
You know what? They can do whatever they want.
I think it's fine if you didn't read it all, or if you had to take a test by this day and you didn't take it. Sure, that's a 0.
Yeah, that's a
Because
zero.
I mean, the
If you
kid has
took it-
3 weeks, right?
Yes. If you
3
took
weeks
it and
to
you
read
made
a
a
book?
20, well, you made a 20. Like,
That's what I do.
Let's
I
figure
do
something
that. They
else
make
out.
10. They make a 10. Sorry.
it's not a 0.
You're
And-
going to study
and-
hall and you're gonna.
Make it
See, and that's
count
where,
double or something.
that may
if
be
you
the
wanted to
solution
hurt
there,
more.
where it's study hall.
I think
mean-
I've assigned 3 zaps this year for the kids just not taking a test.
Yes.
That's it.
Because then you did not do your work.
Yeah,
It's an incomplete work.
and
So
that's
you
more
don't do that.
consistent with all the other stuff. It's an assignment that you
I think it's just easier maybe for teachers to just go, you got a zap. Then they have to go in and put them in buzz time
Yeah.
in study
But you
hall
only do it every 3 weeks. It's not that big a deal.
You do it once every 2 weeks.
on your
Because they'll go and
buzz.
change the
Y'all set
master's
y'all's
schedule.
buzz
Mm-hmm.
for
Do you
3
do it
weeks
for
at
a
a
whole
time.
Study hall is for until they take their next test. So
Oh.
if they gotta
Literally
pass
until
it
y'all
to
take
get
it.
out.
Okay.
I was thinking the same, they could probably back pay. Skip out a day.
No.
What time of the day is
So the
study?
next time.
It's a buzz.
Because
This buzz
So
time.
like if they don't
Second
pass the
period.
test, her Her and Kristen should go in the master schedule and put study hall on any blanks they have for the next 3 weeks. And if they pass it, they'll go in.
So you take all their free time.
Once I had an opportunity to look at the feedback, and I even made a few phone calls to a couple of the individuals that I met with, and they all felt like the agenda was followed. We did, although I had to cut it short from what you were able to see. The meeting actually went about an hour and 15 minutes or so, and I was really targeting for about 45 minutes. So we were able to get through all the incentive stuff, and I think in the video portion you saw us talking about lunch detentions. I think I had to negate the ZAP portion, and then the portion at the end dealing with the specific behavior issue that we have in regards to some misconduct in the restrooms. Looking at some of the feedback that I got, I got that it felt very informal and very comfortable for them, and I know probably that's due to my personality and the relationship I have with these individuals, but also took into account that it was during spring break, so that made it very informal because they were basically coming in at 11:30 on a day that they have off in the middle of the week. So but as far as the agenda, we covered everything and came up with some specific resolutions on some of the documentations, creating drop downs with teachers' names on them, as well as going in and biting the bullet and doing a drop down with the students' names, understanding that new students will have to be added once they show up on campus, which shouldn't be that big of a deal. The benefit of those drop downs will be that teachers' names, we won't have to worry about them getting put in multiple times, nor students put in there multiple times. So we will get an accurate account for those students as well as the teachers. And then also on creating a drop down for some of the offenses when it comes to lunch detentions. And then we even did that on the ZAP as well, breaking it down into AR, incomplete work, and tardies. And then on lunch detentions, coming up with an array of things where no longer making like missed work and those type of things eligible for lunch detention. Those things will go in as ZAPs. So it'll allow us to kind of document and kind of pinpoint some of the areas on campus that we're having issues with or discipline problems in the classroom, in the hallway, and also in the cafeteria. I think any revelations I had was obviously time management. We did get off task a couple of times, but one of the people at the meeting noted that even while off topic, it was areas worth visiting. So I think anytime you have a group of people, there are going to be concerns that are going to pop up, or the conversation is going to bring up some other issues or areas that also need to be attended to. So it's not something that we solve those issues when those things arise, but at least it brought it to mind so that we can revisit it maybe in a future meeting. As far as collaboration, I think that's probably one of my strong suits as far as building those relationships and being able to listen and to gather information and utilize other people's ideas and allow them to be active participants and have ownership of. So, I appreciate that from several of the people in the group. As you saw, Miss Witt, man, she is one of those where she is on top of things, and once an idea gets in her head and you start collaborating with her, there's been times where in the middle of the day I'll actually be just outside her door at a desk hacking away at something, and she'll be coming in and out of the classroom adjusting and even staying after school, going to her room and especially when it came to the mail merge and learning some things, technology, um, you know, things that I've never utilized or are unfamiliar with. So it's been very helpful. I did notice that there's times in the video as I watched it. Um, I don't know if it was to try to keep things rolling or to stay on track, understanding that this was supposed to be kind of a timed assignment. Um, I, I I felt as though I was a little short with some people, not in a rude or disrespectful way, but maybe cutting them off a little bit or trying to overtalk them. So that's an area I saw in the video that I definitely, as an administrator, I need to make sure that I am allowing them to finish their thought and finish it clearly without interruption. Overall, I thought the meeting went really well. I think it was a very important meeting, and it was probably due to revisit some of these things and these concepts because, like I said, they have been changing and kind of we've been adapting and manipulating it as the years gone by, but definitely needed to revisit together, and hopefully at the end of the year we'll come together again. To continue to work on it. I don't ever want this to be a product where it's done. This is it. This is what we're going to do. But hopefully it will continue to stay fresh and pertinent. I think one area that I would like to change and continue to grow is just my knowledge, and I think it will with experience. But having the vocabulary. For instance, one area when we're talking about attendance and the importance of attendance being, at a certain percentage and ours being at 94 and how we're going to take a hit. But in that moment, being able to understand it a little bit more and be able to verbalize that it's a situation where TEA looks at that and it is one of those things where we can receive a distinction for. And so just one of those areas where as an administrator, being able to kind of talk the talk a little bit better. I'm not real sure if I was surprised by much of the information that I gathered. I expected to gain a lot of insight from these individuals, and I do know now, even looking at it, probably more in these meetings. Sometimes the more individuals talk, it's one of those things where you start seeing who those leaders are and who has no problem, vocalizing their opinions and their thoughts and their ideas, and understanding that when that occurs, you have something. But at the same time, there's a few that they don't necessarily speak much or necessarily in an open meeting, but you'll gain valuable information and insight and perspective through the reflection. I definitely gained some through that survey from some individuals that maybe they don't talk a whole lot, but they give you valuable information and are very resourceful as well. So just having that mixed group of individuals. As far as how this experience may transform me or my practice as an administrator, I don't see it changing just a whole lot. As far as the way I am, I need to continue to develop and grow, but as far as being able to sit with a group of individuals, whether they're members of the leadership team or whether they're a group of team teachers or faculty members, or for instance, like we just did with the disciplinary committee, teachers, I want to be able to have that type of interaction. One where we jokingly said it, but there's a lot of fear sometimes that teachers, they feel like they can't talk, they can't say things to administrators, and setting those norms that as long as it's respectful and that we're being professional, I want to hear what you have to say, and I'm not going to hold it against anyone. I want it to be very open. I want to be very transparent. And I think by doing that, you gain the trust and you build that relationship that is absolutely the most valuable thing that you can do as a leader and as an administrator. And that's one of the areas that I've always focused on, and I feel that has led me to my position here as the assistant principal. And hopefully, you know, time will tell, and God willing, a principal, possibly even have my own campus here at Mineola or a neighboring school district. Those are my hopes. Thank you.